In this video, we're going to have a look at learning one of my all-time favourite warm-up exercises. It doesn't sound particularly impressive as it is chromatic in nature, but the physical benefits of doing this before moving on to other things are great. I always run through this a couple of times before every gig, and it really makes a big difference when it comes to waking up the fingers and increasing overall performance ability. This exercise can be played in two ways. Firstly, we're going to have a look at using alternating picking, and secondly, we're going to have a look at adding in hammer-ons and pull-offs to run up and down the scale. Overall, this exercise is really great for developing things such as finger dexterity, strength, stamina, the use of all four fingers, and of course building up our skill at alternating picking. Let's have a listen to the exercise at a high tempo. As you can see, this exercise is built up of using the same pattern with different finger combinations across all 6 strings. For the sake of good practice, we're going to keep our thumb on the back of the guitar neck in line with the middle finger over each of the 3 finger combinations. We're going to start with our first finger on the 1st fret of the low E string, and then we're going to place our middle finger down on fret 2. It's important here that we keep this first finger down as we go. You get a bit of a stretch there, and that's what this exercise is all about. So we start on the low E string and we play E, A and D, the first 3 strings down, and then we jump back up 1 string and then play A, D and G as the next 3. If that's a little bit confusing, have a listen and see if you can follow. We follow the same pattern until we reach the high E string. So once we're here, we're now going to jump back up a string and play the next 3. Jump back up a string and play the remaining 3. Concentrate on developing a good alternating picking pattern when going through this. We will always start with a down pick with the first finger and then up pick when the second finger goes down. Follow this all the way through and it will really help develop your string skipping abilities and your plectrum accuracy on each of the 6 strings. Have a listen to this a little bit slower and see if you can follow along. So we're going to play the same thing but pretty much in reverse. So we start with the high E string backwards. Now we move back down 1 string. Next 3, down 1 string and then up the next 3. Down 1 string and up the next 3. Till we land on the first note again. Once we reach the original note, we're now going to switch to using our middle finger and our 3rd finger and repeat the same pattern. So start with your middle finger on the low E string on fret number 2. The second note will be fret 3. We're going to look to keep our middle finger down the same way that we did with the first finger and the second finger. This will help develop a good stretch and increase our technical abilities when it comes to playing skill runs. Follow the same pattern down again, 3 strings down, back up, next 3 strings, back up, next 3 strings, back up, next 3 until you reach the bottom. Try and follow along. Once we reach the top, we're going to do the same thing backwards again. 3 strings up, 1 down, 3 strings up, 1 down, 3 strings up, 1 down, 3 strings up till we reach the top. Thirdly, we're going to do this with the 3rd finger and the pinky. This is probably the hardest one out of the lot. You might be unfamiliar with using the pinky, especially in this kind of situation, but it's really good for helping to build that strength up. Start with your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret, pinky on the 4th. You get the idea here, keep that 3rd finger down as we go, and we'll get a nice stretch with those fingers. So how do we practice this then? We're going to start off with a nice slow tempo. In the description to this video, you'll have links to 3 different backing tracks. Start with the slowest one. Watch out for your timings. Make sure to avoid what I call the Pink Panther feel. Remember that each note is the same length as the previous one. Once we have some confidence in playing through this exercise, we can make it a little bit more difficult by adding on hammer-ons to the ascending and pull-offs to the descending parts of this exercise. A hammer-on is more like a snap-on, so we play the first note with our first finger, and then we play the second note with our middle finger without plucking the string again. We're really looking for a consistent volume between each of the notes. The first note should be exactly the same volume as the second note. If you find this quite tricky, then try just playing the first 3 strings of the exercise. Once we reach the top, we're going to use pull-offs to make our way back up to the first note. Start with both your fingers down, play the note, and essentially flick the finger down and out to get the required note. Again, if you find this quite tricky, try it with just the first 3 strings. So the goal is to use these techniques across all of the finger combinations that we looked at in the first part of the video. You can definitely feel a bit of a burn here as you reach the 3rd finger and the pinky, but stick with it, it's really good for building up strength. So when taking this further, we might look at some different finger combinations, for example your 1st finger and your 4th finger, which you might be familiar with from the minor pentatonic scale, or your 1st finger and your 3rd finger, which you might also be familiar with, again, from the minor pentatonic scale. Have a listen to the whole exercise 2 speed with hammer-ons and pull-offs.